Hey everybody, so we are back with another what sold video. My apologies, I did plan on having some other kind of video between last week's what sold, but the week just got away from me and it didn't go quite exactly as planned. So hopefully we'll have some more different kind of content coming up here pretty soon. But I wanted to stay on track with the what sold videos, and we're looking at the second week of February, the 10th through the 16th, second-ish kind of week. And I do remember that we did have a couple days with no sales at all on eBay, so I feel like it was going to be a lot shorter of a video. But I think what saved it was that I did run a sale towards the end of the week, and so we were able to move a few more things. So, but pretty slow on some of the other platforms as well that week. February, what can we say? Anyway, the first thing we're going to talk about today is this vintage NASA Space Camp decorative collectible plate. So not something, collector's plate is not something I spend a whole lot of time looking at. I'm sure there's some gems in there among the collector's plates, and we'll probably make a video about that someday. But I think I had shown this in a haul video when I was with Mr. Pish Posh, or I was showing him the things I had found. And this caught my eye because it was NASA, and I knew that there would be collectors for it. And I had done a quick search in Goodwill and found out that I was right, that, you know, sales were right about at that $25, $26 level. So as you can see, it was made in Japan. So vintage, had to do with the space camp. So it sold for $24.99. And I would say, based on that video, that was probably a few months ago, is how long it took to sell. Then next up is this Victoria's Secret bra. I don't even remember where I picked this up. I'm guessing, I know I picked it up because I've heard, I haven't done a whole lot with bras, but Victoria's Secret can be kind of a bread and butter brand if you're going to flip bras. I picked this up because it was new with tags. I didn't comp the style or anything like that. It must have been cheap enough. I have a feeling it was a certain thrift store I go to that does their clothing half off fairly often. And anyway, it sold for $18.99. More of Mr. Pish Posh's clean out of the garage. This tub spout with a diverter sold for $24.99. It was by Price Pfister. Okay, so some flatware that I shared with you on the one of my flatware haul videos on Flatware Fridays. I had come across these Pottery Barn forks. And as I said in that video, they were just marked stainless Japan, 18.8 stainless Japan. And I just thought that they were like really good condition, like good shape, good feel to them. So I used the image search on replacements.com, and they got identified as Pottery Barn, which I was excited about because Pottery Barn can be a good brand to find in flatware and to flip. And these forks, you can see I still have some available. So I sold 2 of them that week, and so the total was $59.98. Actually, maybe it's not showing the full discount, because I know there was a discount if she bought, or if they bought more than one. But no, that was the total, $59.98. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so more, I don't know how many parts there are to a table saw, but Mr. Pish Posh has managed to find all of them, I think, and they're all eventually selling. So actually, I'm going back to think about that fork. It's bothering me. Yeah, so subtract $6 out of that total. So $54 about is what those forks sold for. I knew something was not quite right. Okay. Anyway, yes, $24.99 for the Bosch table saw, these little teeny tiny parts. This was a Scrubs top. I had only picked it up. It's Carhartt, which is okay. I had just picked it up one day at the thrift because it was new with tags, and it was Carhartt like Force, you know, a very sporty kind of looking scrub stop. And new with tags. I figured we couldn't go wrong. Anyway, we had sold it once, and then it came back because it didn't fit. Fortunately, they had left the tags and everything on it. We sold it again pretty quickly for $20 was the offer that we sent or took or whatever. We have this, I sold these two little canal houses, and I'm going to pause for a second so I can get my information straight. I meant to look this up ahead of time. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to get something straight in my head. So these little canal houses, they are like a Delft style. I'll show you the back, what it says on the back of them. When I first found them, I was like, oh, I've heard about these, because they're actually technically little bottles. If you look at the top, there would be little cork stoppers. And the ones that I had actually heard about were by KLM. So they would be airline, they were like airline bottles of liquor that you would get on a flight. But then, so when I saw these at the store, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it's just kind of like what I thought. So it turned out, when you flip it over, 2003 World Voyage. So these were from like a cruise, similar idea. But the ones I had been familiar with that sometimes can sell for really good prices are the KLM ones. I was still happy to find these. I think I paid like $1.50, and I ended up, these ended up selling in the sale 10% off for $35.99, which was really great. And this kind of style of little house, I don't know, people, maybe it's kind of leftover or residual from like the Lennox Spice House kind of thing. You know, people kind of like some of this little cute little house type decor, and they collect all sorts of them. I can't promise this. This might have been a personal camera. I'm not sure. I think it was my husband's. Anyway, he had tried selling it for a much higher price, not a whole lot of interest in it, and so it finally sold for 10% off the for $80.99, the whole kind of kit and caboodle. Okay, so that one video that we had, that I had where I was thrifting in my garage, this was like one of the first things to sell from it, which cracked me up, because that video was about thrifting, like vintage, you know, finding vintage in my garage that's been just sitting. And I was like, oh, I found all these scarves out there. And so I grabbed one because it was nice, you know, nice condition. It was lamb's wool. And I was like, well, it's already February, end of January. Let me just try it. And it's like one of the first things that sold that I listed. Anyway, the brand is McNutt, Scottish lamb's wool. It was herringbone. They come in different colors, and it sold for $29.99. Probably just within a few days of me listing it. And then same day we sold this Marmot beanie. It was part of the sale, $22.49 for that. A mug. We sold this Villeroy and Bock New Wave coffee mug. This one had surgeon fish, had a fish design on it. It sold for $22.49 as part of the sale. Nothing special about these. They're Carhartt flame resistant. Usually, I think I had picked them up. I wouldn't normally pick up Carhartt jeans, but I thought the flame resistant part would kind of help. 36 is a decent size for reselling jeans, but not a whole lot of interest in them. And so we got a $20 offer and we took it. Some more little hardware bits and bobs. Mr. Pish Posh has these. It's a very specific piece of hardware for a tilt-out laundry hamper, and so we sold one of those in the sale for $17.09. Maybe it wasn't in the sale. I don't know. Maybe it was an offer, because it's not showing up as one of the sale items. So one thing I did while the sale was running, I felt like our sales had been kind of slow. Normally during a sale, I don't send out a whole lot of offers, but in this case, I went through the pending offers that were eligible. And even though it was already 10% off for $40.49, I went ahead and offered an even better price. So I had offered $35 because I wanted this stuff to move. Even though it was Patagonia, I don't know, just the style of it is not super popular and didn't get a whole lot of attention. So we moved that on for $35. I was happy that that little hack kind of worked. Then these Torrid overall jeans, their overall crop is what they were called, women's size 20. They sold for $26.09 during the sale. Then this next sale makes me really happy. So I had finally decided it was part of my cleaning up in my office as I'm rearranging some things. And I was like, oh, I got to attack these frames. And we talked about picture frames in another video. And it looked like a lot of people were lotting up very basic vintage frames for people to do gallery walls. And so I had been just picking up frames here and there, just the very plain mid-century looking brass ones, some of these filigree fancy ones. And so when I was looking at comps again, as I was trying to figure out how to divvy them up, I noticed that there was quite a few of these filigree ones that had actually sold for a pretty good price. And so I used that word maximalist. That's kind of a trend. There's people who are going pure minimalist, but then there's people who are just filling their house, filling their apartments, and kind of like this over the top and ornate kind of look. So I had 5, I put them together and I listed them for $75, and they sold during the sale for $67.49. And I would say they sold within that same week that I listed them. Another part of the Bosch table saw sold for $80.99. And these Cutco cutting boards. I don't know that I ever knew that Cutco had done cutting boards. You can see the mark there. I saw these at our clearance store, believe it or not. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. A little stacking set of cutting boards. And they're polypropylene or whatever. So I hardly paid anything, a couple bucks at the most for these. And they sold in our sale. I was going to say they sold for the $45, but they didn't. We got another offer for $40, which we accepted. Then a hat. I think this is the last one on eBay for the week, but this was just a vintage Trackmobile mobile rail car movers hat, kind of obscure, sold for $22.49 in this sale. And yeah, that's just that. Over on Posh, it was kind of slow. Studio pottery cat mug stoneware sold for $16. Some of this Pooh, I found this vintage 90s Winnie the Pooh lot. I had found a little crib blanket right after we had talked about blankets. That one's still for sale. But someone bought this little lot of like bodysuits. You can't say onesies. Don't say that in your listings unless they're by Gerber. But little bodysuits, little booties from 1995. And they were all new from Fruit of the Loom. I thought it was super cute. But anyway, that sold for $30. Okay, and then Tommy Bahama. This one sold really quickly. I listed this and it sold within a couple days for $30. So you can see we're still kind of in that transition where winter stuff was still kind of selling, but the spring and summer stuff was starting to get picked up as well. And that sold for $30. It's just very nice kind of bold print. I don't pick up all the Tommy Bahamas that I see, but this was a good size, 2XL, and a nice print and a nice fabric. One little sale over on Ruby Lane. I was happy that this sold just because I've had it listed for a really long time. It was this folding travel pocket mirror from the 80s by Buick and Dykman. I'm sure I said that wrong, but it was super cute. I'm just popping up the picture here. Like I said, just a little plastic folding mirror, but that sold for $16. Now, if we go over to Etsy, it was the week of the $12 pattern sale. I realized I think I use $12 fairly often. $10 feels too low, and I saved $9, $10 for the patterns that I really don't think are worth a ton. But that's as low as I want to go. And then 12 is kind of just my average basic like sale price. $12 for that. McCall's 5440, they called it a raggy jacket or a vest. And then the next pattern also sold for $12, just 1990s lined vests. The 90s continue to be popular in my Etsy pattern shop. And Y2K. This one was very Y2K. Had those flared sleeves and everything like that. So that also sold for $12. And the last one to sell for $12 was this 80s dress. Oh, it's bringing back the memories. It was kind of a smaller size, but it was the 80s drop waist kind of classic look. I remember wearing a dress very similar to this one to my brother's graduation, 1989, and the back of the dress had a V as well. And his graduation was outside, and I burned my back so bad. Anyway, that's the memory I have of dresses like that. Okay, over to the other Etsy shop, the Mr. Pish Posh one, Metal and Tweed. Sold this vintage polo by Ralph Lauren necktie that had golfers on it. It was kind of new with tags. It still had a Nordstrom tag on it, which was kind of fun. And, you know, golfers and Ralph Lauren, not like the most popular theme going on, but because it was new with tags, I didn't hesitate to list it. And it was sold for $19.99. Sold this mid-century enamel on copper plate. I used to sell a bunch of these. They're a little bit slower to move, along with a lot of other mid-century type things, but Etsy is generally the place. I don't know why it's so slow. Anyway, you can see a little bit of the copper on the back, but anyway, super pretty. I always love this look. I love it in jewelry and in other pieces. Mr. Pish Posh, I think, had like a 25% sale going on in his store, just trying to move some things and keep that store active. So this sold for the $27.99, which was after that discount. We also sold this square end necktie for $15.99. I probably originally listed it at $20, so yeah, that got that sale price as well. But I always pick up a square end vintage necktie if I find it. So it's kind of new with tags as well. Just had let me see if I can get up closer. Had like the retail sticker on it for the price. Made in the USA, so very definitely 80s and made out of cotton, but just kind of a boring color. But it sold for $15.99. Then I'm excited to say that I opened one of my Etsy shops. I opened back up again. So the Pish Posh, this was my original Etsy shop from back in the day. As you can see, I've had like 27, almost 2,800 sales on that shop. You know, that's spanning many, many years. And I had at one point switched it over to Pish Posh flatware and had sold some flatware. No problem there. And I decided this time when I reopened it that I decided to rename it Pish Posh Kitchen. And then anything vintage kitchen, which I really love selling, is either, you know, it goes onto eBay and then I cross post it over to this shop. And so including the flatware, because I've done pretty well with vintage flatware in the past on Etsy. So we're giving it another go. And one of the reasons I'm doing that as well is that because this is my original shop, back in the day, I used to have a blog. I was called the Recyclista, and I had a blog post about starting an Etsy shop. And it got a lot of attention, it got a lot of traffic. And part of what Etsy does is if you want to, you can promote Etsy to other sellers. And if they open a shop using your link, then you get 40 free listings, and so does the person opening the shop, right? And so I had my affiliate link in the article, and I had lots of people sign up. And so I have like 600 free listings. When I started this shop, I had 600 free listings still just sitting in this this Etsy shop. And I was like, so many times I was like, oh, I wish you could transfer them over to another Etsy shop, but I don't think you can. So I was like, you know what, if I open it, then at least I don't have to pay the listing fees, for so many listings, probably most of the year I can get away with not having a listing fee. So I figured we might as well use it. And I opened it, and then this week that we're talking about, I ended up having 4 sales. So I sold this Oneida Community iced Frostfire iced teaspoons. So what had happened is I had sold 4 of these over on eBay, and then I was moving stuff around and came across these 6 more. So I just did a quick sell similar, cross-posted these over into Etsy when I opened the shop, and they sold here on Etsy for $38. Then I sold these oval soup spoons, also by Oneida, in the pattern Cantata. These had been sitting on eBay. I think I had sold the other pieces in that pattern, and the soup spoons were just sitting. But I moved them over to Etsy, and they sold here for $25. And then I sold this spatula for $18. It was by Echo. Very thin, kind of flexible metal that everybody loves. And I also sold this set of cocktail forks and 2 iced teaspoons by Northland. Again, stuff I've just been trying to work on getting my backlog of flatware listed, and got these listed, and they were the first things to sell in Pish Posh Kitchen. So it'll be fun to see how that shop does, and just kind of having a fun another little curated kind of site. I have sold kitchen stuff on Ruby Lane. I've just decided to move it over to doing eBay and Etsy for like the flatware, because it did sell on Ruby Lane, just a lot slower. So I would like some of this stuff to go a little faster. And then Ruby Lane will focus on more, I've got a lot of stuff in Ruby Lane that I'm not going to necessarily take the time to move my kitchen stuff over. But I think what I will do in the future is just kind of focus on my jewelry. I have tons of jewelry to list, women's accessories, kind of interesting vintage little knickknacks and things like that. And then eventually, maybe piece by piece, I'll move some of the kitchen stuff over, or it can sell out of here and we'll be good. So that's the plan. Like I said, hopefully I'll have another different kind of video coming out in the next few days or so. Leave me a comment down below if you are, how your February is going. I always say it's slow. It feels slow. And like I said, not a whole lot of high dollar sales. And then, like I said, a few of those days we had no sales at all on eBay. So how are you guys handling it? Have your sales slowed down, or are they pretty much normal? So just let me know how things are going that way. But anyway, I will talk to you guys soon, and I hope you have a great rest of the day today.